And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Author Karen Wilkinson with us. Worked in the software industry for many years. As early as she can remember, she's been abducted by non-human alien entities, possibly hundreds of times. Truly amazing. She has seen many UFOs throughout her lifetime and suffered emotional and physical ailments due to the things they did. She has written about her experiences and also is a regular contributor and writer to L.A. Marzulli's monthly newsletter, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. Her book is called Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. Karen, welcome to the program. Looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, George. I'm so excited and happy to be here with you tonight.
And our friend L.A. Marzulli has written the foreword to your book. We just think the world of that guy.
Oh, me too. He's the most amazing person. He's a great friend, a great mentor, and just an amazing support.
Did you give him the support I think he needed a couple of years ago when that fire raced through the California area and took out everything he owned?
Oh, that was devastating. And I made a deal with him that every time I see him, I will bring him another book until we have his library refilled.
Oh, good for you. He's a good guy.
It's a little thing, but it's just one little thing I can do. And, that was just devastating.
Right before we get into your story that you worked in the software industry, what do you think of artificial intelligence this day? We were talking about it over the last couple hours.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think that it has some very positive, amazing aspects to it, and it also has some very potentially dangerous aspects as well. It's something where it's as much as you give it, right? That's what it will be able to work with. So I think it's something we need to keep an eye on.
I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a possibility that artificial intelligence could go awry and out of control.
Exactly. How much leash are we going to give that? How much information are we going to let it have access to, or is it going to gain access to with or without our permission? And I think that's where it gets a little scary.
The name of your book is called Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. Tell us about that title.
Yes. The title is about the fact that I had some missing pregnancies, and that I, at a later point in life, actually...
Taking babies, taking embryos?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes, I was married. I was pregnant, went to the doctor. Everything was verified. Everything was there. And then at the end of the first trimester, I started to not feel well. But I didn't have any kind of a physical miscarriage. Went to the hospital because I was feeling really bad. And there was no baby. And they did a D&C, and there was no fetal tissue, no nothing. And they asked me, "Ma'am, are you sure you were pregnant?" And, I'd heard a heartbeat. I'd been through the doctors. I'd done all, everything you do at that point. And it was just devastating because, I never got to know if it was a boy or a girl. I didn't get to mourn that child, to memorialize that child. It was just gone.
Did you document the pregnancy, or did they think you were a little,
Well, I had one doctor who had already documented that I was pregnant, and then it was an emergency room where they were completely separate. And, this is 40 years ago, so things weren't connected like they are today, obviously.
Right.
So, in the emergency room, they're like, were you ever even pregnant? They thought I was, they thought I was crazy. But they could tell that something had been going on because my body, your body changes when you're pregnant.
Well, do you think that these were hybrids or actually human babies that they stole?
Hybrids, absolutely. Because there was a point later where I was taken, and I was able to hold one of these babies, and it was very strange, a very strange experience. It was not like a normal baby where one of my normal babies would cuddle into me, and have a reaction to me. It just seemed to have no reaction to me. It was very, very small.
Did it look human?
Kind of, but it was a lot darker, almost a reddish purple color, almost bluish.
What about the head? What about the head and the eyes, Karen?
Head was very large. It was more head than body.
Wow. So definitely out of proportion, right?
Yeah, the proportions were just wrong, and it didn't cuddle into me. It was like holding a brick, is how I described it, because it just didn't respond to me the way, and even someone else's baby, when you hold it, will kind of respond. It didn't respond, and I wanted to keep it. I wanted to keep trying, but I also didn't want to at the same time. I was very torn. And obviously I didn't get to stay with that baby, but I think they were trying to see if it would bond to me or if I could, I wasn't told what the purpose was for me to be there and trying to hold that baby, but I believe it was to get me to bond with it or maybe see if it would give it more human qualities. I'm not sure.
How many months into the pregnancy do you think it was taken?
Right around 3 months.
3 months, and then they raised it themselves, huh?
And I believe, yeah, because when I was, I read about this in the book on in these facilities where they would take me. Usually it was an underground facility, or there were hallways that were lined with what looked like, I don't know if they do this anymore, but it used to be you'd go into pet stores and they'd have walls of like aquariums.
Yeah.
And it kind of looked like that. And everything was very dark and kind of backlit, like a red, dark color, like a dark room.
Might it have been a spaceship that you somehow walked into?
It could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been because, when I was taken, the act of getting from where I was taken from to the final place, you're not always awake and aware. A lot of times you're shut off, turned off, put to sleep or something like that. So you're not aware of where you are, where you've ended up. But there, and I saw the fetuses in what looked like artificial, what I know now today would be an artificial womb.
How many did they have out there?
Oh, dozens and dozens. I mean, it was like on either side of the wall of the one hallway that I remember more clearly, there were just up to the ceiling, which was probably 20 feet high, was just all I could see were these like, it looked like aquarium squares about that same size of maybe a 10-gallon aquarium. And each one had something in it. And I couldn't see, up high the ones, but the ones I could see down low looked like humans or similar to humans. It's hard to tell.
As much as they can be, I guess.
Yeah, as much as you can tell. And it was very confusing to me because, at that point in time, we're talking in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have anything like that I knew of in science, and there were things like that on the news. So I was very confused as to what all of that was.
Did you ever learn what the hybridization program was for? Was it for this planet or theirs?
No one ever, they never sat me down and said, gave me their agenda or their thoughts on why they were doing what they were doing. I tend to agree with L.A. Marzulli on what the hybridization program is for. I think it's to create beings to be here on this planet to support their agenda.
Whatever that agenda might be, and you think it's somewhat evil, hence the name of the title of your book. Stolen Seed was you, Evil Harvest is what they did to you.
Yes, exactly. And I've met so many women who've had the same type of thing happen and been able to talk to them. And before I wrote the book, L.A. Marzulli had released the 4th movie in his UFO series on abductions, and I was the kind of centerpiece of that movie.
Yeah, that's you. That was you.
Yes, that was me. And everyone says I need to get a T-shirt that says, "Oh, you're that Karen."
That's right.
And that I was inspired to write the book because after that movie came out, and I was at a few places where he was speaking, women, especially women and men as well, but especially women, were coming up to me and thanking me for telling my story, and they wanted to share their stories of very similar experiences, and they just wanted to talk about it, and they wanted it to be okay to talk about it.
How many times, Karen, do you think you have contributed to this hybridization program?
Well, I believe 3 for sure, because I later in life had an opportunity to see 3 of them.
As babies or grown?
As grown hybrid entities.
Did they look then, at this point, more alien than human?
They did. They were very short, very stocky, very dark in colored skin, almost a bluish color of their skin.
So if you saw one walking down the street, you'd definitely say, that's not a human.
Right. These would not fit in. Clearly, this was earlier on in whatever program they're doing, because what I've heard from other people is that, now this program, or, there are apparently hybrids that are much more human-looking.
Right. So those weren't, you don't think they're walking among us. They'd stand out like a sore thumb.
Well, those ones would, yeah. And I do believe that there's kind of been a progression of trying to figure out how to get them to look more and more human. And my opinion, this is conjecture on my part, is that, it's how much human DNA and how much of their DNA does it take to make it
do they mix? Yeah,
enough, but still be whatever they are, whatever this entity is, and which race of these entities are they able to utilize to make them look more human.
Well, what do you think might have happened to these original hybrids that didn't quite fit in?
I have no idea, but I know that for the rest of them, I have no idea. I would imagine, because I've seen the 3 that were, I knew they were mine because I had an instance. If you'd like, I can share that. I woke up one night and they were standing there beside my bed.
They being the hybrids or the ETs?
The 3 hybrid children that were clearly mine.
If you had to guess how old they were, what would you say in human years?
Human years, I would guess they were probably about in their 30s.
Okay, all right.
30s.
Did they speak to you?
They spoke to me like telepathically. They spoke to me without using words, but they did mind speak. They wanted me to come with them. And when I woke up, I instantly knew they were mine, because they had features and things that just looked like my kids. And there's something about a mom that knows her kids.
Absolutely.
And things like that. Or I can, and I can always pick them out of a huge crowd, like a Where's Waldo kind of situation. I can always pick them out. And
were these 3 hybrids kind to you?
No.
They were not?
No.
Not right treating Mama that way, right?
No, they were not. They were not kind, respectful, loving kids, and they came across as very that you could just feel the anger coming off of them.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't, because I hadn't had, that I know of, or that I can remember, any other interactions with them. And I really, for a long, long time, wanted to, because I thought, if they're, because I didn't know if they were living, if they had survived, and I thought if they were, and they were half me, that maybe I could, help. Maybe I could take care of them. Maybe I could, be an influence on them, help them, or help raise them, anything, as a mother, if it's, your child, you don't care. You want to be there for that child. It's just that nurturing, mothering instinct.
And they wanted you to go with them. Did you?
No. I felt it was just, George, it was this pure feeling of evil coming off of him. It was like standing in front of a coiled up rattlesnake.
Wow.
But there were 3 of them.
Now, how did they leave, or how did they depart?
They departed when I broke the pole. They were really trying to, pull me towards them, and
physically.
They weren't using their hands, but I felt myself starting to levitate.
Almost like magnetic, huh? Just drawing you.
Exactly. Yes, that's a great way of putting it. I felt myself start to levitate off the bed and over to the side where they were, and I called out Jesus' name, and instantly I dropped onto the bed. They disappeared, and my husband just shot straight up in bed. And, it was amazing because I couldn't get his attention that whole time. And they left just as quickly as they came.
What took you so long to write this story?
It took me a long time to be able to deal with my own emotional issues from it. And what happened was a couple of years ago, I had a near-death experience. I kind of call it a near-life experience, where I was in the hospital, and instead of being given a sedative, I was given a paralytic, and there was no one around me, and I died on the table.
Literally?
Literally.
Oh, my.
I literally died on the table, ended up with a stroke and all kinds of stuff from it. And the death experience, I heard a voice saying, "It's okay, you can let go now," and I instantly, in a blink of an eye, I was out of my body. I was watching things the doctors were doing in the other rooms. I could hear and see everything everyone was doing, even though I didn't have a physical body. And, George, the funniest thing about it was I still had, my personality. And that's what struck me the most. So I keep telling everybody, be happy with yourself because you get to keep this self goes with you. So like yourself. But after that, because of the paralysis part of it, and it was like drowning, but without being in water. It was just terrifying. I had a lot of PTSD after that, and I went through a lot of PTSD therapy to deal with that. And in doing so, that helped me really deal with the other things that it was too hard to talk about.
Pretty dramatic. So this episode, one would say, inspired you to write this story.
The episode inspired me to deal with it for sure, absolutely, and then to start to figure out how I can talk about it. And I'm like, there's got to be a way I can, share this, use this, help other people find a way to get through it, because I spent so much of my life just not able to deal with it.
We're going to get into more of your story, Karen, in just a moment on Coast to Coast. Karen Wilkinson with us. The name of her book is called Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, and we'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, along with Karen Wilkinson. And we are talking about her true account of lifelong alien abductions and the evil alien agenda that she believes is underway. Karen, have you ever undergone hypnosis for any of this?
No, I have not, George. That's not something I've done before.
It might be something that might be worthwhile. It might bring up even some more sharper memories, though you seem to be pretty spot on with some of these things.
Yeah, it might, and I am good friends with Michelle, so I might look into that.
Now, you state in your book that non-human alien entities are intervening with humans in an attempt to corrupt our bloodline. Tell me more about that.
Right, and that goes back to the hybrid beings, the hybrid entities, like the children that I talked about of mine that I saw that were from me or partially from me. And this is, I believe, goes back to the hybrid programs that different biblical verses refer to, and also
like fallen angels.
Yes, exactly. So back to Genesis 6 and Genesis 3:15 and the seed war, and I do believe that some of these entities, at least the ones that I have dealt with, some of them appeared to be fallen angelic beings.
So you think there's something satanic behind this?
I do. I've had encounters with wonderful, beautiful, loving angelic beings. And I've had encounters with not so wonderful, not beautiful, not loving, but fallen angelic beings. So there's definitely a very huge difference between the two. And we know that, that when Satan fell, he took a third of those angels with him. So we know he's also outnumbered 2-1.
Do you recall being taken to other planetary systems, or do you think everything was done right here on planet Earth?
I think everything was done right here on planet Earth.
Do you have any idea where they're from?
No, they never sat down and told me where they were from. They never sat down and gave me any kind of a star map or any kind of an explanation for where they came from. Just that, they were more powerful than we were, that they were trying to interact with us and interbreed with us, and, but they never sat down and said, this is our agenda and this is where we're from.
Did your family know what was going on? Did you make them aware of it?
Well, when I was little, I tried. But then I was shown a screen memory of my family being hurt in front of me, and I was told not to speak to anyone about it. And I was continually told throughout my life that I was not to share what was happening or not to talk to anyone about it. And it wasn't just that, too, because when I was little, I tried, but, George, we didn't have names for what these things were. We didn't have names like UFOs and UAPs and Greys and reptilians and things like that. There weren't TV shows, on for it. There might have been Star Trek type things or something like that, but there weren't books and movies and shows and things like that to give us a language to put behind what was happening.
Did you ever ask yourself, Karen, why you?
Oh, absolutely. I think I probably asked myself that question more often than I can count. Yes, I did. I asked myself that a lot. And I asked them, why? Why me? Why are you taking me? Why are you wanting? They're like, they would always tell me that I was special, that I was a good fit for them. Clearly, I was a good breeding type person for them. I have some physical qualities that seem to line up with other abductees that I've met and spoken with as far as blood type and things like that. So I think that's part of it.
Are you still being approached by them?
I'm still being approached, but I'm not being taken.
What do they want to do with you now at this point?
I don't know, because I'm not having any, I'm not allowing any more further conversation to that end. But honestly, the last interaction where there was sort of a conversation going on was that they wanted me back to continue to share their message. But their message, excuse me, I was not one that I wanted to share because I didn't agree with it, and it was deceptive in my opinion, and it wasn't something I wanted to do, and they were very unhappy about that.
Do you think there are some aliens that are well-intentioned
do, because I believe that these beings, sorry.
If you do me a favor, if you cough, move your mouth from the phone.
I am so sorry. Yes, absolutely.
Or you blow out my ears.
I am so sorry. I'm not used to being on a landline. I apologize, George. I was sneezing. There are good, like I said, I have had interactions with really good angelic beings. And, when you look up in the sky, if you see a craft, if something comes down and beings come out of it, you don't have any way to know if these are benevolent or malevolent, right? Because you can ask them, but a bad guy's not going to tell you he's the bad guy, right?
No, he's not. And L.A. Marzulli mentions in his foreword our friend David Jacobs, who believes that there's a very nefarious meaning behind these visitations. So he would probably agree with you that these aren't all good.
Exactly. And, it's just when you're taken against your will and you don't want this to happen, then I have a hard time finding the benevolence in that.
How old would your hybrids be today?
Late 30s.
Still? Okay, so...
Probably closer to 40, yeah.
So when you saw the three of them, how long ago was that? 10 years ago?
A few years ago.
Okay.
About 5 years ago, maybe.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the date, because I did write it down. Yeah, not too long ago. And I really wanted to know, and that was a thing, and I think that I was allowed to see them. I think God allowed that to happen so that I would have my closure finally. Because if there was good in them, if they were good, if they were, there was something there, then I wanted to be able to have a relationship with them.
You really wanted to treat them as your babies, didn't you?
I did. I really did. And I think anyone who's had a child, and maybe even people who haven't, would probably be able to understand that feeling of, when you've had a child, and I think that's why people, when they've given a child up for adoption or something like that, will, later in life try to find that child, because they still love them. Just because they couldn't raise them doesn't mean you don't love them.
Do you think the hybridization program is continuing today, worldwide?
I really do, absolutely.
How many people do you think have been approached, have been abducted, have been used for a breeding program, do you think?
Yes, my goodness. That would be a really difficult number to speculate on. But what I can tell you is people come up to me at conferences or events or respond through my website or through my Facebook page. Daily I hear from someone else practically. So I think it's a really high number. And, there was the poll done in the 70s, right? That was said had a very high number then. So I think it's probably a very high percentage.
Now, you mentioned Roswell in the Grenada Treaty in your book. Tell me the tie-in there.
The tie-in for that for me was that these are two things that a lot of people are familiar with, especially Roswell. And I thought it was significant because it points out the fact that when Roswell happened, the government said, first, there was a headline, that the saucer crashed. And then they yanked that back and said, no, nothing to see here. Nothing
right.
happened.
Yeah, they yanked that pretty darn fast, didn't they?
Exactly. And then we're still getting that same game today. Oh, we have no interest in UFOs. Oh, yes, we are studying UAPs. They created a narrative and a system where people think UFOs are crazy talk, and if you say you've been abducted, you're insane. And then they come back and say, but UAPs are real, and we have craft, and we have videos, and we have biologicals. So, but we can't talk to you about it, but we're going to go have meetings with other people about it that you're not allowed to know about. So we're going to leave it all up to your imagination what we're saying. So it's this crazy back and forth of No, they're not real. Yes, they are real. No, we're not doing any research into this. Yes, we are looking into this.
Interesting. Do you think governments are aware of what's going on with the abduction cases?
It's just my opinion, but I absolutely do. Because from the time I was little, I saw humans.
Are they a willing party to all of this, do you think?
I don't necessarily think that all of the humans who are involved knew what they were getting involved in until it was too late to get out of it.
But do you think this is going on with the knowledge of the government that basically has turned its head?
Right. I think they're turning a blind eye to something that was agreed to a long time ago, and to a program that was started and you can't stop, and to a program that people get into not really realizing what they're getting into, and then it's too late to get out of it.
Karen, this book is new. It has come out this year. How do you get it?
Right now, it is available exclusively at lamarzulli.net, L.A. Marzulli's website. That's lamarzulli.net. You can find links to it at my website, which is KarenWilkinsonAuthor.com.
And we've got that linked up for you at coasttocoastam.com. And you spell your first name Karin, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
How did you meet L.A., or how did he find you?
It's a funny story. Just quite kind of by accident. And so I think it was really Providence that we were put together, and ended up at a conference where he was, a Christian conference, and agreed to tell him my story, just kind of on the spot.
I think your story has scared him.
I never thought I would tell anyone my story, and I don't know why I trusted L.A., but I just had this feeling about him, and he's the first person besides my husband that I ever trusted to tell my story to.
And you can trust him. He's a good guy.
He is the best. He really is, and helped me. And my dedication, I dedicated this book to L.A., who listened, believed, and is always there for me, because that is what he did.
Did you know his working partner before he died, Richard Shaw?
I did not. No, I wish I had.
He was a good guy, too.
Yeah, he was amazing. And, I just want it to be okay for people to talk about this. There are a lot of people out there, trying to talk about it, and you have a lot of those amazing people on your show. And I want it to be okay for people to come forward and say, hey, this happened to me. And if they need to talk about it, that's okay.
Do you think anybody else in your family might have been abducted or contacted?
I do, but I can't speak for them.
You suspect it, or you know for sure?
I suspect it, and for one, I know for sure.
And this happened before you or after you?
Well, actually, this one after me.
Both of them?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so you were the first in the family to...
Well, I can't say that I was the first in the family, because I believe it did happen to my late grandmother and...
Okay.
Mm-hmm, and possibly some other family members who are living that I don't want to speak for them.
Do you think the ETs select these families, whoever they may be, and concentrates primarily on them and their children?
I do. I think when they find a genetic line that works for them, a genetic line that they can work with to create hybrids or utilize for whatever they are utilizing that genetic material for, that they continue with that bloodline because it works and it makes sense.
It sure does. Mention LA's website again. We're getting lots of emails already about him.
Oh, dear. It's L.A. Marzulli, LAMARZULLI.net. And you can link to that through my website. You can also link to that through my Facebook page, which is just my name.
And also, folks, if you search LA's name on the coasttocoastam.com website, his website pops up as well in case you're in trouble and need to find it. Karen, we're going to take a short break and come back and open up the phone lines for people to take an opportunity to call you. But in 10 and 15 seconds, what advice would you give somebody who thinks they're being abducted?
Pray. That would be my number one advice. Pray and find someone to talk to.
All right, we're going to come back in a moment with Karen Wilkinson, author of Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest.